drives cars, he stares and cares. From drive to La La Land, holds our hearts in his hand. And every road leaves his mark. Ryan Gosling lights up the dark.
Hello and welcome to Good Boys Gone Bland, Season 10, Episode 10, Barbie. I'm your co-host, the Denali Ken doll, complete with chronic fatigue, laser eyes, and a podcast.
I'm your co-host, Cowboy Ken. I'm from over yonder, and how do you do?
Hey, it's your boy, Douchebag Glasses Ken. Also with the podcast.
Wait, right, I just want to say, you came in with such a good voice there. I have never heard you whip out that voice in all of our 90-plus episodes of improv. You've been keeping that in the back pocket.
From Kentucky.
Oh, that's good.
Damn.
I can't believe you've kept an accent just buried deep to pull out at the most
100
useless
episodes.
time. How
You
many
could've been
accents?
You could have been a cowboy any time that we had done an improv.
Any cowboy?
Well.
We've done one cowboy bit, I think, across 100 episodes. I think. Anyways, Ryan, I'm happy to see it. That folks at home, that just shows you deep down you have an impression buried deep in you that maybe you don't realize. All right.
I got a couple more that I whip out around the campfire.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want to share another one, Cowboy Ken? Was that Scooby Doo?
Hello, Mr. Donkey. A horse?
Like Scoob.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah. Sorry to ruin our Ken bit with my noticing your great impression. But folks, we're doing the Barbie movie. Okay, finally. You've been waiting for an all-male podcast to finally give their takes on Barbie. Well, here we have it, folks. This is gonna go great. But yeah, we're on episode 10 of our Ryan Gosling season, okay? We would be remiss if we skipped out on this iconic role. All right, he got nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting for this role, all right?
Yeah, it was the only
and
one.
Honestly, was he the... Yeah, he was the only one out of the whole Barbie, which I think is almost like perfect performance art, like where it's like the message of Barbie ingrained in the nominations. Nothing for Greta, nothing for Margot, just the man got recognized. But we've arrived. I think this is peak Ryan Gosling, and I think we are sending him off, I think, proper here. How are you guys feeling 10 episodes in to a Ryan Gosling season? Do you want more? Has it gone bland for you?
I quite enjoy... Oh, this is Cowboy Ken, by the way. I took my hat off.
Oh, okay, yeah. This is Ryan.
I quite enjoy the Ryan Gosling on my screen every weekend, and we took a couple weeks between recordings because you guys had lives to get to. But it's kind of refreshing to have an actor who does good movies.
Yes.
You know?
God, please.
It's been hard to find the bottom of the barrel, tar.
We
Ryan
skipped them
Gosling
because they were
movies.
controversial, okay? Stop
They
beating
were
around
pretty-
the bush.
That's right.
You know.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
No, we did watch some bad ones, Jace. We watched Gangster Squad.
Yeah.
That was quite bad.
We watched the bad non...
Yeah, there was Only God Forgives. Nobody see that movie. I'm so glad we didn't review it. But yeah, Ryan, it sounds like you've enjoyed kind of seeing good movies, right? Like 10, they weren't all good movies, but they were like passably movies. Whose pick was this week? Was it Ryan's?
Me.
No,
I think
Jace.
Jace. I've closed it up. Okay.
Let's get into the movie.
We're at the end of our 10-movie Ryan Gosling marathon to see if he's gone bland. We watched Barbie, and Barbie, played by Margot Robbie, who lives in Barbie land, which is separate from the real world, but still within the same universe, starts having irrepressible thoughts of death. And then she and Ken, played by Ryan Gosling, have to go to the real world to figure out what the problem is. And in that real world, Barbie is hit with just the shit stick. She realizes that the real world's nothing like Barbie land. She realizes that the patriarchy exists, which Ken is super pumped about.
Yes.
And he finds out about horses. He really likes horses.
I remember when I found out about those.
And we get this beautiful story about Barbie reconnecting with the person who played with her as a child, and a whole lot of capitalism. Pretty much. This movie was funded by Mattel.
Yeah.
They made $125 million off of it. So, and then Barbie becomes a real human.
That's great, Jace. You did a great job. Like you said, this movie made a lot of fucking money. All right. Budget of $145 million. Box office, $1.4 billion. Okay.
What?
Absolutely wild. Huge success when this came out. Greta Gerwig's biggest movie by a gigantic margin. This thing opened up #1 July 21st, 2023. Okay, we just had this year. Okay, so surely that summer of 2023, we would perhaps recall some of the biggest movies in the box office. This thing opened. I think it was like $160 million. Can you guys guess '2 in the box office this weekend? I'm not going to
Wasn't
give
it-
any hints.
Wasn't it
Was it just
Oppenheimer?
Oppenheimer? Yeah.
It was Oppenheimer. Ryan, you get 1 point. $82 million. #3 in the box office. I'm going to give some hints for it. This was actually a really big movie. It's a crime thriller. It's about a federal agent who is trying to save somebody. Is this ringing any bells?
Is it like a Bourne spinoff?
It's not a Bourne spinoff. And
Was it? So it's big enough to where we would be like, oh yeah, that movie. I
made-
potentially saw it.
$250 million in the box office.
Okay.
That
It starred.
About a
Okay.
federal agent.
Yeah, and
Batman?
how should I put this? It's it's not Batman. It's like a QAnon kind of movie. Like a lot of
do that.
right wingers are into this movie.
The one that was. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That one. I don't know the name of it, but it's the propaganda movie.
It's Sound of Freedom by Angel
Yes.
Studios. It's
haven't
I
heard of
forgot
this.
about this shit. Yeah, it's fucking nuts. If you guys ever give it a Google, it has a 99 on Rotten Tomatoes, 36 on Metacritic. I'm sure
What?
that's just who knows why.
Because
that
it
is.
was only seen by people. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. One more. This is a real movie.
Okay.
This is a sequel of a really big franchise. #4 in the box office.
Sequel,
This
not
is-
a
this is-
threequel.
Yeah, not a threequel. This is actually like a multi-quel. Like this is deep in the franchise.
Doctor Strange?
It's not Doctor Strange.
Man, what
It's an
genre?
action franchise. It's starring pretty big name.
Let's say a Jurassic World.
It's not Jurassic World.
What
I'm
came
afraid
out in
if I give
2021?
one more hint, this is going to
big-
reveal the whole thing. And this was a part
in the
1, I'll say.
catalog.
This is a part 1 sequel. And some thought it was a little disappointing.
Part 1.
It's about accomplishing something that's really hard. Some might think accomplishing it is like not even possible.
Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning.
God damn it. Yeah, it is. That's what it
I saw that in theaters. That's
I
funny.
know, right? I was surprised you did get it. That was the box office. That's a pretty, outside of Barbie and Oppenheimer, that's pretty fucking bleak, I think, going all the way down for the summer. Going to this movie, did you guys see this in theaters when it came out?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I did as well. I saw we saw a screening where we were the only ones in the theater, which was amazing. Watching this movie like that. This was a second watch for me, and I think it benefited from the second watch. I think I caught more jokes. I mean, this is kind of like right off the get, you realize it's kind of like Lego Movie, where it's like the joke density is very thick. There's a lot of visual gags. There's a lot of audio gags. Like even the song that's playing, there's jokes within jokes. What was your guys' first impression of this movie, seeing it for the first time when you did?
Seeing it for the first time was really special. It was a really interesting theater experience because I was expecting it to be like, kind of a little bit of social commentary, but kind of just like a ha-ha movie. Like the way they went about it and to the extent they went about it, I thought that kind of caught me off guard a little bit, especially with the opening scene and with the 2001 Space Odyssey.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because I saw it at a matinee, like on a Sunday at a small theater. And there were a few other people in the theater, and they were all old couples, or it might have been a couple, but like two older guys, like in their 60s, who showed up and were a couple rows behind us. And when 2001, the music came on and the apes that were now children playing with dolls.
Yeah.
There's a guy in the background going like laughing the whole time, and so I don't know, it felt like really refreshing. I thought that the whole time I had never seen anything quite like this, especially in the opening when we get into the kind of ironic humor. It's one of those movies where everything is crafted, and so you're put in this giant set immediately. Like Barbie Land is like an entire set, right? It's not like they took a camera out into the real world and shot some footage. And I was surprised at the production quality, actually.
Fantastic.
This shit went so fucking hard.
Slapped, yeah.
When you see like the Space Odyssey gag in the beginning and just the way they do it, you're like, oh shit, this movie's gonna go extremely hard with like this type of humor. It's like, I mean, I keep bringing up Lego Movie. I'm so sorry for doing this, but like, it's when we saw that movie, I feel like we had the same response of like, oh, it's like, this is a really smart comedy. Like, even though this could be so corporate, this could be so sanitized and be like such a middle of the road movie. Like, if something was like this was released maybe in the 2000s or the 90s, it would not have gone this hard. And then you kind of get into, you see Barbie Land for the first time after this scene, where where you see like literally a crafted set. It's almost like you're watching Speed Racer, where it's just like all these colors
Yeah.
in your face. You're
That's
like,
a
holy
really
shit.
good. Yeah, that's a really good comparison.
And then you see Ken for the first time. So like I like to think about kind of the first scene you see Ryan Gosling in each movie. You have Ryan Gosling just with like is it like airbrushed abs? Like it's ridiculous in this movie. Like they make him look like physically like a doll. Even his hair I think looks fake to me.
And I made a comment last night that I couldn't quite put into words how Ryan Gosling's character kind of made me feel uncomfortable, right? Because I guess the idea is that he is a now 40-something-year-old person.
Right.
And he's playing someone who is like, all his co-stars are much younger than he is.
Right.
You know, all the other Kens are like in their late 20s, early 30s. And then he's also like, his Ken is also stuck in the shadow of Barbie and seemingly kind of like infantile, right? So it's kind of ironic that they dressed him up too to look really young, and they overdid it on purpose. And I thought that was the first time I watched it, I was like, come on, you're not fake. You're not making me think that this is like what Ryan Gosling actually walks around looking like.
Right.
And then the second time I'm kind of like, oh, I get it. That in itself is kind of a joke where, you know, Ken is not really how the normal person looks either.
It's giving like CEO man-child, I think too, when you see that, where it's like, you know, those like tech entrepreneurs, like when they go to Coachella and they dress in a way where it's like, you know, that's not how they like they're trying to give off this vibe. But you see kind of like there's certain lines that are slipped in here, and like the way Ken's introduced, he's like standing on a rock where he's like, "Hey Barbie," and you
Check
see
me out,
like
Barbie.
yeah, like Ryan Gosling's face. Like, he does so much face acting. You can see like pain and jealousy and determination all in like a span of like 3 seconds. And you see Simu Liu's Barbie, or Simu Liu's Ken, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey Barbie, hey Ken." He like waves to Ken, and the way Ryan Gosling just waves him off with like one, he's like, "Ah," like that. It already sets the tone for the whole movie. Just that 1 second with all his facial expressions.
The cohesion of Barbies and the riff between the Kens, just because of like the faction, and even when we get it later, is so good. And watching this, I think when I see a phenomenal acting performance, it always makes me go, man, I was like, oh man, it'd be so cool to be an actor. Mm-hmm. When Simu Liu does it, I'm jealous with like seething rage about like, right. He crushed it in this movie. Like every time he's doing choreography or acting in this, I'm like, fuck.
You're Ryan Gosling in this movie. Like, did you guys hear about that trivia about like how they kind of formed their rivalry in the movie? Like, apparently during like one of the rehearsals, it was for like a dance sequence. Simu Liu does like a backflip, like in actual life, like real life. He doesn't use a stuntman, and he just did that in front of the camera. And Ryan Gosling's reaction was something like, he's like, "God damn it!" Like he had this kind of reaction. It was like, "Are you serious?" And then they liked his reaction so much, they started creating this rivalry. They like wrote in a rivalry between them, because I think initially they were going to be on the same side. And they thought,
that's a huge part of the movie.
Right, yeah. And I think it's so funny that was like a natural thing.
They're just out there shooting dailies and then showing them to the writers.
I don't know what exactly it was, but they said this one moment kind of made them kind of form this thing, which I think is so great.
I have I was wondering, I saw on the rewatch, and I think this movie benefited from a rewatch, and I apologize, I'm cutting very far ahead here.
No,
they have this gag in the movie twice where they throw clothing out of out of the Barbie dream house, and then it flashes to flat, and it says like the Mattel brand, like Dr. Barbie's white coat, blah, blah, that type of thing. And the daughter, I think later on in the movie when they come back to Kendom and they're throwing Barbie's clothes out of the house, it gives to a shot. And I almost think that they were just like filming it. Like they were literally like throwing the clothes out of the thing. But the actor for the daughter, whose name, I'm forgetting. Sasha. She's just like laughing. Like you can tell like the camera's really far away. It's getting all these people on set. And I think it's like breaking character, but she's just like laughing like, oh my God, as they throw these clothes out this window.
It looked like a fun set. Like you said, Jace, because that was a thing like Margot Robbie said too, where she was like, she kept breaking every time Ryan Gosling spoke, because it was so ridiculous. And they would have to, like, Greta Gerwig would have to shoot extra footage of just her face just being like straight, just so they can like cut it in.
Yeah, you could tell a couple scenes they would film. I think Kate McKinnon's scene with Margot Robbie was shot with stand-ins.
Yeah.
You could tell that's not Margot Robbie's head, the back of her head there. And I totally agree, Jace. And one of my favorite things about movies, just when I'm watching them, I try to pick out when characters are laughing. And it's really rare to have a character laugh, even in a comedy. And if they do laugh, they're like usually like being laughed at, and they're kind of like, oh, I don't really understand what's going on. But in this movie, so many of the characters happy laugh, and especially the Barbies before, you know, the world gets ruined by Ken's. When they're living in the Barbie paradise, they are hanging out in the Oval Office, and the reporter Barbie's like, President Barbie, how'd you get this like so great or something? And she's like, no comment.
Yeah.
And she starts laughing. And stuff like that makes the audience feel the emotion so much more authentically. And a lot of movies miss that. They get crying on camera when they want the audience to cry. They get, you know, feeling angry on camera when they want the audience to feel angry. But they don't show laughter on camera when they want the audience to laugh. They just show jokes. Right. And I thought that's something that this movie did extremely well, was they showed laughter. And that's probably something that's like very on purpose, obviously, because everything in this movie pretty much was. But yeah, I totally agree, Jason. Like finding, even when it's okay to break character, because we've already kind of set precedent in the whole movie for characters laughing.
That's interesting, Ryan. I never thought about that aspect, and it adds like so much joy to this first scene too, where it's like you see this world, everyone's like ha 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 ha, like you know, and everyone's laughing and having a good time, and it creates like a great contrast later when you see Margot Robbie's character kind of change, right, where she's like no longer kind of in that headspace anymore, but like you see the start of that at the amazing house party sequence where everyone's kind of doing this disco dance to Dua Lipa's track. Like, it's so good. They did not need to choreograph that fucking hard with
They
the
did not
costumes.
need to have a dance battle like that hard.
Yeah, it was insanely good. You see Ryan Gosling and Simu Liu just like dance fighting with the way they're staring at each other, but still doing the claps and like all the thrusts, which I think is so funny to do.
And then we got a scream. We got our RG patented scream.
When was the scream?
In the dance party. He's on the ground and
Yeah.
he has his cup, and then Simo does something and he goes, "What?"
Was it the backflip?
Right. Yeah, it's probably the backflip.
Maybe it was unscripted, yeah. And then like the moment where I was like, oh, this movie is like doing something I did not expect is when Margot Robbie just says like, do you guys ever think about dying? And like that makes my blood run cold. Like it was,
I
like,
literally
the party
gasped.
stops.
I
Yeah.
remember gasping in the theater
Yeah.
because I
And,
thought
like,
I thought the movie was going to be totally surface level.
Yeah, and to drop such a heavy hammer on like the lightest scene you've ever seen. Do you guys ever think about dying? And like I felt the same gasp that all the other characters felt in that moment. And she was like, haha, just kidding, guys. And like
I'm dying to party.
Like that reminds me so much of like, you know, as kids, you know, you have that same moment where you're like, oh shit, I'm a human being and like everyone's gonna die. And it's like it's traumatic to learn that. Like I remember that was really traumatizing to learn that information as a kid. I could never come to terms with it. And it's such a real human moment. And to fold that into a kid's, like kind of like a kid-oriented Barbie movie is a huge choice. And I'm really glad they made it. Because like, I don't know, like maybe some kids are going to watch this movie and then they're seeing a character say, do you ever think about dying? And, you know, the movie kind of deals with that. They kind of deconstruct it. And I was like, oh shit, this movie is going to go hard. Like it's going to go places that I think that none of us really expected. Yeah. So kind of throughout this, yeah, it's that what happened with mentioning death, it just really stops the flow dead, doesn't it?
No, I know what you're talking about. I remember where I was the first time I realized that I was going to die.
Yeah?
Yeah, I was in my living room sitting on a couch watching TV, and I was thought about it. I was like, you know those memes nowadays where there's like when you're 5 years old and you gain sentience?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of like that, and I turned to my mom and I was like, "Mom, am I going to die?" And she was like, "Oh."
Oh, weird question, buddy.
I remember, like, I think it was my mom or my dad about death because we were watching Star Wars and we saw like a character get killed off, and that was like I remember I asked the same thing and I was like inconsolable. I think the way my parents said it, where they're like, "Oh yeah, All of us will.
Yeah.
And like I think like swallowing that pill as a kid, it's like I don't even know if there's a good way to say it really, or like maybe add some context, maybe but it is a disturbing thing to put in there.
Someday.
But
anytime, really.
right,
And if I'm not with you at that exact moment, you'll never know if I'm truly alive or dead.
God, I mean, moments like that in this movie, I think it is kind of like an allegory for like when you're at a party, for example. I don't know, maybe everyone's gone through this. I definitely have. When you're at a party or a get together with all these people and you drop something that's like really real or like something that like really means a lot or something, and it's like it kills the vibe all of a sudden, or it's like you're in a space where, maybe you mention something that's like politically happening in the world or something that happened to you even, or you make a comment and it's like everyone's like, oh, we're at a party right now. Like we don't want to like introduce that vibe in here. And I like how that's kind of the start of Barbie's kind of transformation in this movie. She goes on an analysis kind of her whole society after that one moment.
It was the waffle for me. Everything was fine until the burnt waffle.
Yeah.
That's when I would have known things were wrong.
Her whole life spirals out of control at this point. You get a replay of kind of like all the shit going wrong. And then what happens? She has to visit Kate McKinnon.
Weird
Weird
Barbie.
Barbie. The most
We're
effortless
sorry
casting,
we
I
called you
think.
Weird Barbie behind your back and to your face.
I think that Weird Barbie was better on the second watch. On the first watch, I was just kind of like, oh, okay, they're making fun, or there's like, someone who lives in the woods.
Right.
Always. And Barbie has one too. We just call it Weird Barbie. But because like of the sort of reveal throughout the movie that, these Barbies are a representation of how they get played with, the Weird Barbie hit from the beginning, And the fact that that we get this, they do this a couple times throughout the movie, but they'll flash to a child playing with a Barbie and to explain something. And they do that really quickly for Weird Barbie. And they like, she cuts her hair, sets her on fire, and then yanks her legs into the splits and like punts her. And then we get to Weird Barbie and someone's like, why is she always in the splits?
Right.
And then she is always in the splits. And I mean, I just missed a couple of those jokes the first time, and we're like, oh,
yeah,
they were all coming at me so quickly. And this time, I was like, oh yeah, Weird Barbie is always in the splits.
Always.
So when the kid yanks the legs sideways, oh man, I laughed so hard.
It is like a phenomenon too, like the Barbie destruction, or like of action figures in general, or like any dolls. Like I knew a lot of girls who would just like put it on a bottle rocket or like throw it in a fire and do all these different things. It's like, it's almost like that's part of like some kind of development for kids, is to fuck with their toys like that. Like I definitely destroyed some fucking toys growing up.
We did the firecrackers.
Yeah, the classic. And then so you kind of have this moment after Kate McKinnon. She's like, "Hey, you've opened a portal. Someone's playing with you weird. They're like working out some shit when they're playing with you, and it's making your thoughts get all real and shit, not Barbie thoughts." And she was like, "Do you want to go in the real world and figure this shit out, or do you want to stay in this world?" She kind of does this Matrix thing, and she was like, "Fuck that, I'm staying here. I don't want to know." Okay, I'm ready to forget, which I think is a really great scene. But she eventually elects to go back into the human world, to enter the world of Santa Monica Pier with Ken in an amazing sequence with rollerblade outfits. And that was kind of the first kind of press photos we saw of Barbie at that point, like this scene. Where everyone was like, what the fuck is happening here? Like,
and
what is this
for? The first photos I saw was like her in the cowboy outfit.
Right.
Yeah,
like
the pink
around
cowboy
Santa Monica
outfit. And then Ryan Gosling in the in the one with all the frills.
Yeah. Pretty iconic moment. And you see like immediately the tone change, right? Like everyone's starting to catcall. And then again, like coming from that world, going into this world, it's like really jarring to like see like the construction workers and all these people.
I thought the one thing that I thought was funny in this scene, the little payoff, was the first time that Ken's like, I was thinking I could come over tonight.
Right.
And Barbie was like, and do what? And he was like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then we get to the construction scene, and she's like, I don't have a vagina, and he doesn't have a penis. And I was like, wait.
He's like, I have all the genitals. I also like how when she mentions to Ken, where she was like, oh, hey, like, I'm noticing, like, I'm feeling like this really uncomfortable vibe, and everyone's like saying all this shit to me, and he's like, I don't notice anything.
He's like, totally not aggressive at all. She's like, very aggressive.
Yeah. And then like it's from the rest of this, it's kind of like a lot of bits with Ken's sequence where like you see him discover patriarchy. I think it's a fucking hilarious sequence.
Yeah.
like with the bro fist pounding, like the build up for everything.
It's like the reverse 2001 Space Odyssey, right? Like
Yeah.
he's not discovering something, progressive.
Return
he's
to Monkey.
discovering yeah, exactly. He's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
The Dark Ages were way better. And then Julie made this great comparison to Paul Rudd's character in Wet Hot American Summer. So Ryan Gosling has some amazing physical acting here. And one of my favorite comedic physical performances is Paul Rudd in that movie. And especially when he's like angsty, he's all this. He's like the cool guy in that movie, but he turns into a toddler whenever anyone tells him to do anything.
Yeah.
And there's a moment where Barbie's like, "I just want to sit on this bench and think." And Ryan Gosling's like, "Can I go over there?"
I don't know, Ken. Go on a walk. Where?
And then she's like, "Don't go far." He's like, "I know."
Yeah, he like instantly turns into a child. Or didn't
Yeah.
she say like go check out the library? He's like, I will. Or he's like, it's such like a wet performance from him, and like he said, he's like, I'm born to play Ken. Like this is the role that I wanted to do, and he's finally like, this is the end point of his like comedic potential. Like I think we were waiting for him to kind of take a role like this, and go full absurd, and then you kind of get the Mattel sequence after this, right? Like you see the Mattel boardroom. And this is like the part where I'm kind of like, okay, this is a weird paradox right now. So you're getting a Mattel-sponsored movie who is criticizing Mattel, like bringing up problems within Mattel, but then it's also like they wouldn't sign off on it unless it would make them, look good, right? Like
I don't think they ever really talked about. I feel
Yeah,
like
'cause-
they were never really actually critical of. There was a lot of dancing around capitalism in Mattel, but never, bold
Never outright
faced
saying
like
this
yeah.
company is terrible. And if anything,
Well-
by the end, we were shown that they understand the social issues. Like that's the other thing. Yeah, they're run by men, but they were run by men because that's the way society works.
But I do think like that is like a negative, right? Where it's like they showed the boardroom of all dudes, right? And they were all talking about women's issues, like about like what, like how to depict. Like,
how about this?
Yeah.
How about you're making a Barbie movie
yeah,
that's going to be critically acclaimed? There's a bunch of people attached to it. The script, the director's amazing. It's going to be a smash hit. There's a cultural desire for this.
right.
And it's just crisp, clean. It's going to be amazing. And your company is like, no, you put too many, you made fun of us by saying that we're run by men.
Yeah.
You have to be kinder to men. And like if it came out that they were like blocking the
Right.
Barbie movie from making like a progressive commentary, then that would be worse than taking a punch or two, in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I
think so, yeah.
understand that like there was a monolithic male dominated C-suite as part of the joke. I think that's different than like actually throwing shade at them.
Because it was very obvious they were characters and they weren't the actual board.
Right. But I do think it does paint them in a certain light. Because, like, even when she calls out Will Ferrell, where he's like, how dare you? I'm a son of a mother. And, like, they're kind of talking about, like, how money-centric they are. They're like, oh, that's going to sell, Barbies. Like, that's what we're selling right now. We're selling all this stuff. And, yeah, like, I totally, Brian, like, I think it would be a pretty fucking bad look if they came forward. But I do think it's funny that, like, they are doing, like, a little nudging at themselves at their own expense. But they're also like getting a lot of kudos points from it at the same time for taking that hit. And it's, inherently it's like a Mattel propaganda film, like just because it's like, it's attached, it's supposed to make them look good and sell the product. And I think it's an interesting choice to like name the company in the movie that you're creating.
I wouldn't have known what company made Barbie if they didn't say it in the movie.
Same, honestly. I had no idea who Mattel was. And I
I
forgot who
cannot
Mattel
name-
was until I rewatched this movie.
Yes, exactly. And
Okay,
I cannot
okay.
name another toy that they make.
I guess like I remember in commercials where they would show the logo, right? Kind of like Hasbro, where they're like, oh, Transformers from Hasbro, or like, oh, from Mattel.
I wouldn't have. I know the word Hasbro, but I wouldn't have known that a toy is attached to them either.
Look, I've chewed on a lot of toys in my day, and I've noticed a lot of logos.
I was more affected by, if anything, I think the second And only maybe product placement that hit me was the Chevy
Chevy.
product placement, just because we got
Jesus
like
Christ. Yes.
3 or 4 car scenes, and then
And they're all Chevy
very-
Suburbans,
yeah.
the new Trailblazer.
yeah.
I bet they made a lot of money from that. That was like gratuitous.
That was
right?
like
Yeah.
Geostorm level.
yeah.
Not Geostorm, Moonfall
It was
level.
Moonfall, yeah. We're like, let's kick it into Chevy Sport mode to get out of this mess.
And it would have been fine if they addressed it, But the fact that they're making a movie that's inherently product placement and it's an anti-corporate, anti-consumerism movie, and then they are very obviously taking money from a company to put their stuff in it, and then are just like pretending like we won't notice, and they're just gonna have it like they're doing normal product placement in this movie.
Yeah.
And
It's
that
buck wild.
infuriated me. Seeing
Yeah.
those trademark orange seatbelts too, like
Yes. And like the perfect pristine zoom ins on like the Chevy will stop and it's like it stops on the logo in the middle of the frame.
Yeah. What, like
And
the
they're all
car,
Chevys?
they did a whole scene for just the blue car. Like they backed into
Yeah.
an alleyway, and then like they tried to, I feel like they were like, we're going to give you money for this, but you have to include this shot for shot in it.
Yeah.
And then they were like, how do we, they like duck down in the car. And I'm like, you're driving the only electric blue Chevy vehicle around here. Ducking down in the car in the alley isn't going to help. This is why are they putting this in the movie?
Hey, isn't that the new Chevy electric vehicle? She must be in that car.
I think, just with the way that contracts are and how complicated they are, the studio probably didn't greenlight it with at least some assurance that it was going to make some money, whether that's from a car company
Yeah.
or like the actors not taking, their normal payouts and just taking percentages or something. Like it's a way to make the studio greenlight the film, and that's had nothing to do with the directors or anything.
Right.
The director's probably not even on set the day that they shoot those car scenes.
I heard Greta's a huge Chevy head, and she was like, I am not making this movie unless there's a Chevy car chase. This part of the movie is where they drop the Charlie XCX Barbie remix in this movie, which I love. Charlie is like my favorite pop star ever, and like this soundtrack is full of bangers. Like it's a huge fucking soundtrack. It's put together by Mark Ronson. You got Dua Lipa, you got Lizzo.
See,
it's like
I didn't know that these weren't original songs.
like, how do you mean? Like I mean they
I
were
thought,
made for the movie.
I thought
I
everything in
believe.
this movie was original.
I think they were made for the movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I think they were like curated together. And I think these are like Billie Eilish, she put down, like she made that track for the movie and then.
Bro, that's
I would not have been able to.
laughed.
Yeah.
I would not have been able to tell you who made the songs either.
Well-
But I appreciate that they fit the scenes very well, which is why I thought they were like, just random people who made them. I guess, I don't know. It's just my ignorance.
No, I mean, I think it's a good soundtrack, but they also did a score on top of that. They made an original score for this movie that they put together, which I think is cool. Like, not a lot of movies create a score anymore. And Mark Ronson, I listened to an interview with him about this movie, like creating it. And, he wrote the I'm Just Ken song originally as a joke. That was the first thing that he wrote for the movie. He kind of did it on a piano. And then he pitched it to Greta, and she was like, this is going to be a whole scene. Ryan Gosling's going to sing this whole fucking thing. And he brought Ryan in the studio, and he said he was so shocked by the energy that Gosling threw into it, where he got warmed up. And he like brought the song to life by putting it in. And they were like, fuck yeah, we're going to put in a dance sequence too. And spend millions upon millions of dollars doing, probably the highlight of the film. And I think it really makes it. I think the music really puts it together. And
I think
Jace,
it's the emotional, like as much as Barbie is the actual story and the plot line, like the turn, like Barbie's turn happens really early in the movie. The emotional turn she takes, like identifying that this is a problem and dealing with it. And that takes the whole movie. But like Ryan Gosling's Ken's emotional turn happens during the I'm Just Ken sequence.
Right.
And that's why, like, to me, that was the key for the climax of this movie, was having some character come to like a kind of a revelation. I like Barbie's arc, and that they devoted a lot of time to it. And it was interesting choice to have Ken's emotional arc happen at the same time as Barbie's plot line is coming to the end.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, I think Barbie's arc is obviously more satisfying. You know, it's more subtle too. I think, you know, her acting, she has to do a lot of heavy lifting here to kind of like do this kind of like she's becoming humanized and her acting is kind of becoming less animated. And then Ken, it kind of stays in the same kind of like dim-witted comedic like, oh, like, you know, childlike thing, but then at the end he just kind of becomes okay with who he is. But like before we get to that point, like I guess Mattel's after Barbie and Ken, or just Barbie at this point. They don't care about Ken.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
A whole Allen escaped and nobody even cared. NSYNC.
They're all Allens. You know, they're kind of running around. You have America Ferrera's character. She's trying to like help Barbie escape from Mattel, who's trying to, I guess, just lock her in a box. It doesn't sound like they're even trying to like get
They're
her
just
back.
gonna box her and ship. I think they're gonna box her and take her back to Barbie Land.
Oh, was that what it was?
I thought that's what it was.
I thought that was that's what I gleaned from it,
Yeah.
because she said she had been in the box before, and
Did she say that?
presumably
I didn't know
she
that.
got
Okay.
out of it in Barbie Land.
I think I missed that completely, Ryan. I mean, if that
Yeah, she was like, "Oh, I haven't been in this thing forever."
Oh, okay. So, I mean, okay, that's less horrifying because I thought they were literally just gonna like put her
They're
in
gonna
the box
mulch her?
and like,
We
yeah, or
gotta
like some,
mulch
yeah,
ya.
right. It's like that's what they do to escaped toys is that, and then like I think it's also interesting. You see at this point, America Ferrera is kind of coming to her own realizations, like following around Barbie. It kind of builds to America Ferrera's speech when they're back in Barbie Land. They see how it's all changed and stuff.
It's emotionally moving. Like it as the speech goes on. I think I was laying on the couch and I had one leg over the other. And I think I was in that position for like an hour. And then the speech goes on and
Yeah.
it starts going and I'm like, ooh, oh. And then I like have to
Yeah.
move the leg and I'm like, oh wow.
My leg.
It's like
I should have.
it's like, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to bring to the point that like a lot of this movie, there's a lot of this movie that's comfortable and that it's funny. And this scene is like really emotionally impactful. And to the point where like I felt it.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you know, like when she got nominated for the best supporting Oscar, I was like, oh, interesting. Like I didn't really remember too much from her role because it had been a while since I seen Barbie. And then rewatching it, I was like, oh, this is the scene that kind of like pulls that together for me. Like this, I was like, oh shit, she's going hard here.
Yeah, it hit really hard the first time. I remember like because I wasn't really expecting much from this movie. And being surprised by the tone of it the whole time and how effective it kind of poked fun at the world, and then also like seriously critiqued the world. To have this speech, and it goes on, and she continues making points as they're rehabilitating the different Barbies, and that's what I really appreciated on the second watch. But on the first watch, it really caught me off guard. I remember in the theater, like, you know, we kind of not rethinking my life, because it's not like I was a, but like thinking, you know, I have a certain amount of privilege because I don't have to, like, society does not put a single expectation on me.
You know, it enhances our consciousness to hear stuff like this, you know. And I think to put that in a Barbie movie, like, holy shit, like that is, I think that's a big swing. And I mean, it fucking paid off, dog. Like, you kind of, at this point, what we're exploring kind of Kenland, right? Or what is that what they called it?
The Kendom.
The Kendom.
Yeah. The
Ken
Mojo
brings-
Doja Casa house.
Ken brings back the great gospel of patriarchy to the Kens and completely destroys Barbieville. And you see him, they're all kind of wearing these like cheetah print coats with like these laser glasses and shit. It looks like a frat house basically. And you see, Jason Ryan, for those who are not YouTube watchers, they're cosplaying right now as members of the Kendom.
Cosplaying is me.
Yes,
I own these. These are for
Yes, yeah.
bicycling.
He did not
You don't
go
have to-
buy those,
You don't have
ironically.
to slander yourself. Jace went to the Halloween store. But like you kind of you see Ken kind of go full turbo incel. Like another decision in this movie where he was like, you never loved me. I'm gonna like do all this shit now because I'm like so small. I think that's another really fun thing for Ryan Gosling to do, because I feel like he's played all these other roles that are kind of like the unrequited love, sometimes hyper masculine roles, and for him to just go like poke fun at incels like this, I think is great. And what was kind of the like resolution? Like the plan was to distract the Kens and then hold the vote, basically, right? Like wasn't that kind of like while they were distracted,
Yep.
they'll
The
just kind of
The Kens planned a vote to
Yeah.
overthrow or rewrite the Constitution to make Kens in power, and so the Barbies just did the classic poison the Sizzler salad bar on the night before Election Day, and they got
Is it
all.
always?
How did that come into your mind?
It's a classic move in DC. Everyone eats at the Sizzler.
And so they just organized a Ken fight that they like made them jealous of each other so that the rivalry would flourish into a fight.
Yeah,
What song were they singing?
It was Push by Matchbox 20, which I think is like one of the.
Is so good. Hey, I'm gonna play guitar at you.
And I will. Like, it's not the one I would think of as like a dude bro song, but it so is in this movie. And then you get like this amazing scene where they're all individually distracting the Kens, like all the Barbies, and they're taking apart like each little like bro subculture along with it, where it's like talking about the Snyder Cut, like the dude mansplaining like fucking what was it, the Godfather. Even the dude mansplaining Pavement as a band, which was a direct shot at me, a nuclear missile straight at my heart.
Wait, what?
Like, he was like, "Oh, Stephen Malkmus kind of has this like sing-songy talk way." Like,
I didn't even get that.
I was like, "Oh no, that's the one for me." I was like waiting for it to come. I was like, "Is Indie Bro gonna get hit here?"
The CD certified deposit mansplain was really good too.
That was good. The Photoshop lasso guy. It's like I feel like. There was
the
multiple.
Photoshop one was good. Yeah, you have to have the layer highlighted.
I think there was multiple guys in the movie theater like shifting uncomfortably, being like, "Oh god damn, did I do that?" Literally verbatim. I thought it was so funny, and it was also just like directly targeted at us movie bros who make podcasts.
I mansplain so fucking much, but that's
First
just
step.
my
It's the first step.
personality.
Is to
and
know.
the only person I have near me normally is a woman.
Unfortunately.
So like,
Look, we have this podcast that we can just get it out of our systems. You know, we're used to just talking just about these subjects so much. Now we have this medium where people can just hit pause or turn the volume down or fast forward, but never
Don't
fast
fast forward
forward.
to us.
Don't fast forward.
That's why I
keep this
avoid
on.
explaining things, and I just make
You just never
horrible
explain it.
jokes
Yeah.
all the time. It was the Mattel scene before they left for Barbie Land where Will Ferrell was like, "We can't even fathom the problems that will occur if we don't capture Barbie." And the guy was like,
Oh, yeah.
Two wise trees hosting a podcast."
A group of young fathers singing in a choir.
It was like, no, even worse.
It's like, yeah, and I just love like the idea of like Greta and the writers sitting in the room. They're like, "Okay, we're gonna target every fucking dude watching this movie right now."
dude,
Shreds.
the Zack Snyder one is so specific
Yeah,
and
that one
targeted,
was-
and
yeah.
that was totally like out of pocket because like it was really early. It would have made sense if it was like later in the movie when they made fun of all those things, but for them to just come out with the Zack Snyder cut thing, like that was
Sorry,
oh
Joe.
man,
I
yeah,
think a
and that's
lot of-
exactly what I thought. I was like, Joe, it probably is gonna rate this movie so low.
We can't, Joe's not here to defend himself,
I know,
but I'll
we
just
can't. We can't.
he hates the Barbie movie. That's all I know. No, he doesn't. He doesn't. I don't know what he does. I don't know what he thinks about the Barbie movie. I think the most Jimmys were wrestled with the Snyder Cut talk. Like all the internet bros who got mad at this.
They're like,
I think
"But
the Snyder
they-
Cut was the.
They don't understand.
They don't. You get the beach war scene. All right, you get the I'm just Ken thing. Huge highlight of the movie. Like to have a dance number here. I heard a rumor that like Greta Gerwig had to fight to keep that dance sequence in because the producers were like, fucking $10 million to like hire like 100 dancers in like a studio. Like, are you fucking kidding me? And she was like, this has to be in this movie. Like, this has to be in here.
2 thumbs up for that.
Yeah,
Damn.
like the fact that it just kept going and going. I was like, me and Amber were like, I can't believe I'm watching this. I
Right.
can't believe I'm watching Ryan Gosling do this.
The fact that you think it's gonna end, you're like, okay,
Yeah.
that's a funny little like original song, and then it just completely like goes into a different gear. Yeah.
Dance battles might make its way into my pitch for next season just
Yeah.
because of this. Like movies with dance battles. Because
It's going to be the Step Up franchise.
like
and,
a
we're gonna
large
watch the whole-
Stomp the
scale
yard.
dance battle in a movie
yeah.
just kind of could make it better.
Hell yeah. I love a good dance moment. So this movie kind of concludes with they hold the vote. The Kens are out, and so the movie ends like Jace mentioned. Margot Robbie can't go back. Like she can't go back to being a Barbie. She's seen and realized too much, basically.
She can't be stereotypical Barbie anymore.
Yeah,
She's woke.
Yeah, libs. This is what happens. All right, you turn into a human. I guess.
She's quite literally. That's the idea.
Yeah, she is
right?
awakened. Yeah. And yeah, so she decides to go human and hangs out with her new friends. And ends with her going to a,
come on.
Yeah.
The
What?
ghost of the creator of Barbie
Oh God, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
pops in because Mattel, the leader of Mattel, is like, well, things are gonna go back to how they were. And then all the Barbies say, no, they shouldn't. We need to get better. And that's when Margot Robbie, a stereotypical Barbie, says, I can't go back. So the ghost of Ruth pops in and was like, you think you can take this step? Come listen to this sick fucking song and see a crazy fucking montage. And they play a montage of
my
videos of
Yeah.
the full life of childhood, middle childhood, childbirth, being a mother. It's this and it was cool. They sourced this footage from the cast. So it's like this
Really?
it was all cast-based footage. And to show stereotypical Barbie what it's like to be human. I don't know. I thought like really emotionally touching. And before we transition out to Margot Robbie being or stereotypical Barbie being human now and going to the gynecologist.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like to introduce something that's like so human. Like anytime I see a human montage in a movie, I always get like really emotional. And I think it's like it's a cool choice to kind of again like bring so much humanity into a movie about toys.
Yeah.
And to make you feel existential and make you feel alive even and to come out of it like that. And then it hits you with like this like party rock anthem ending where it's like you got the Ice Spice track where you remember like, oh shit, this movie was like really fun and it was like a total trip. It's like I left feeling like, when you feel like when you watch Interstellar or another movie that makes you think about life and shit, leaving the theater, I'm just like, holy shit, like I watched a fun movie that made me realize I'm a human being. Do you guys want to get in to the Gosling meters? The Gosometer.
There's all Gosometers, man.
The final Gosometer. How Ryan Gosling was this movie? How did he do in this movie?
Gos.
The final role we've seen. The most recent role. Jace, you want to start us off?
I'm going to go light on description, high on vibes. I think this is a severe and impeccable culmination of the things that we've rated him for. Much yelling, cool outfits, ripped, things from your guys' meters that I don't want to say and steal.
You can steal him. You can steal him.
Like, such a real treat to see him in a supporting role, but like just bringing it and hamming it up and being that character. It's hard for me to say that I'd give him anything less than a 10 with just like, I've liked watching him on the screen with these other movies. I loved watching him in this movie and being a petulant child, growing emotionally and saying really stupid things like, I shall seek my fortune there. They wrote Beach Ken so well, and then he played Beach Ken so well that just,
You giving it a 10?
Yeah.
All right. Well, anywhere else, you'd be a 10 as well. Ryan,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Along those lines, I'm gonna dock it for quantity because he's not the main character. He's just Ken.
Oh.
And this is not Ken. This is Barbie. And it's fair. Like, you should watch this movie to watch Margot Robbie's performance as Barbie. If you're watching this movie to see Ryan Gosling, you're kind of already missing the point, and you should probably watch this movie anyways.
But if you're a Ryan Gosling fan and you watch it to see Ryan Gosling and you learn something, that's a bonus.
Yes. Oh, no. I'm gonna give him a 9.
What if you're a Ryan Gosling podcast and you watch this just for him?
I'm still going to give him a 9. I think he did a very good job. I don't think he could have done anything differently, but just be in the movie more. How about this? Maybe take a stand for once. Make sure there's more men in this movie.
Oh, okay.
That's what he could have done differently.
This movie should have just been Ken.
Just
And that's
Ken.
why
We
it's
don't
not a
even
10.
need Barbie.
Okay, so guys, I mean, you can't give this a low score, all right? He got nominated for an Oscar for this thing, all right? He's in it a lot, okay? This is like an iconic thing. When you think about the Barbie movie, Ken's gonna enter your mind. Like, you're not gonna forget about this character. I can't believe we haven't even talked about Alan at this point. I think it's funny that we forgot about Alan as well.
That's ironic.
But I mean, when I saw he was casted for this movie, I was like, fuck yes, this is like perfect casting. To run down like the my kind of points with this thing, like yes, it took place in LA. All Ryan Gosling movies take place in LA. You nailed it here, even though it was kind of in Barbie Land for half of it. Cool jacket. He had this like kind of wild tiger print jacket thing he had. That's going to get a check from me. He had a good scream. Thank you, Ryan, for mentioning that. He does sing in this movie. I think it's almost the most singing we've seen besides La La Land. He has one of the most iconic song and dance numbers, I think, of our generation in this movie. That's going to get a huge double check from me. Yeah, guys, I mean, fuck. Even though he's not the main character, there is so much focus on Ryan Gosling's character. I'm going to give it a 10 here. I don't see any reason to dock this thing. This is a quintessential Ryan Gosling movie. If you're a fan, you're going to see this movie, all right? Any other actor in this role, I don't think would have nailed it the same way. As a 10, I think this is the most 10-full season we've had ever.
Actually, we'll talk about it at the state of the podcast.
Spoilies. You thought you could get me? You can't. Jace, what do you think about this movie? The movie meter.
I think that this movie is like really beautifully curated, and that if you can be an empathetic viewer to a film, it's going to move you. And I think that they tackled it in like a very neat visual and audio experience kind of sense. And I'll just say that one of my favorite scenes was the one we just got done talking about at the end, where Margot Robbie is seeing the flashbacks in the movie, in the movies, in the film of people's lives and what it's like to be human. And I didn't expect to get the emotional response that I got in the theater and watching it again. This is like, it's a fantastic feel-good film. And like, there are definitely concepts in this movie that you're not gonna get anywhere else. And it's refreshing. So this is my fourth 10 of the season. So, it's a movie that I look forward to watching again.
All right, shit, a 10, baby. Ryan, what do you think about the Barbie movie?
Yeah, it's going to be up there. I think I'm going to go with a 9. This is a great movie. I remember watching it in theaters and being the whole time and being like, finally there's a movie that has like a cultural movement to it that is like good.
Yeah.
Like it was treated like the new Marvel movie. Like everybody was talking about it, And I'm glad that every choice this movie did, I'm glad it made that choice. Maybe not the Chevy product placement, but things felt a little stiffer on the rewatch, and they felt a little more fresh too, like things I didn't catch, because that's a movie should be able to be rewatchable. For instance, some of the dialogue was just edited weird and dubbed in a way that like kind of threw me out for a couple seconds whenever it happened, and that's totally fine, but like it got me back to thinking, yeah, this is not one of my personal favorite movies of all time, which is kind of what I try to do when I give a movie a 10. So I think a 9 is totally fair, and I could 100% understand why this is someone's favorite movie and why someone gives it a 10. I think the fact that this was my second time, but Julie's third time also says something too. Like, this is not just a bro movie, and that's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like what you said about like this being a cultural touchstone, Ryan, because like that is so true. Like I think people were talking.
That sounds really smart. So I probably
yeah,
did say it.
You did say that. You did say it. It's the fact that like it's something that everyone's on board. We usually don't get like a monolithic movie like this. There hasn't been one in a long time. It's not like Star Wars. It's like we haven't got a Star Wars where everyone's dressing as Jedi and everyone's talking about it. With Barbie, the build up, the cosplaying, even when you see like images of Coachella like this year, everyone's dressed as like Barbie and Ken. Like, it's something that's iconic. And when you see kind of like the montage reel of 2020's movies, like 30 years from now or whatever, Barbie's going to be in that reel. Like, that's going to be one of the movies where it's like, oh, you grew up in the 2020s. You saw Barbie in theaters. Like, of course you saw that movie. So I think being here and being here for that moment and seeing how it's like affecting our culture is really cool. This movie had like so much strength of vision. I think that's like part of why it was such like a cultural moment. Like it has a full aesthetic, it has world building, it has like an audio component, just the way even the actors are talking and moving. I remember there was a thrown away kind of concept where everyone would have paddle hands in this movie, but they didn't end up doing it. But like that's how deep they went into this movie. They wanted to build a world and build a logic into this thing, which I think is super cool. Like you don't have to again do that for a product placement movie like this. The lead, Margot Robbie, she's fucking amazing in this movie. She's another one where it's like if you replaced her with anyone else, it wouldn't work. And like Jace mentioned, like bringing these feminist conversations into the mainstream, just for me is like obviously I'm like we're cis het dudes. We can't really comment intelligently on this stuff, but it's cool to just see in like a tentpole like franchise like this. It's cool to see like a multi-million-dollar movie bring that to the forefront because no other movies do that. You don't see Fast and Furious doing an analysis on society and the issues that are in it. But to have a movie that made $1.5 billion and then introduce an analysis to a mainstream naive audience, that's fucking cool. The only drawback, if I may, the drawback for me, I think there's some pacing issues. There are points where it dragged a bit. I think some of it, even Gosling's portions, I think were a little too long in the tooth. There was some parts where I was checking the time, especially on the rewatch. This doesn't fit the criteria for like my favorite movies. And again, I mentioned I have a bias against comedy movies for some reason. I mentioned this before on the podcast, but I'm still going to give it an 8. I loved this movie. I think it's the best that it possibly could have been, which is an extremely high compliment. This is a movie that, you're going to show your fucking grandkids, like if you have them, it's a great movie.
If society lasts that long.
When we're all cavemen eating scraps, I'm going to enact this movie for my...
Next season, A24 Civil War 10 times. Dude, I got to point out, like...
Yeah.
Margot Robbie's physical acting in the Barbie scene where she sits down all stiff.
Oh, yeah.
And then falls over.
It's so good.
10 out of 10.
I love the doll acting in this. Even when Ken like flies in the air when he gets hit by something.
Yeah.
Side note, Kate McKinnon apparently was the best at doing the paddle hands, they said, before they cut it out of the movie, where they would keep their hands straight.
Of course.
And she said she never broke the hands once throughout all her sequences. Completely unsurprising. So there you have it, folks. We reviewed Barbie. We made it, guys. Me, Jason, and Ryan, we're running on fumes in the beginning of this podcast, but I think we stuck the landing.
We were a little rusty.
We tightened it up.
We tightened it up. I think we're all well and lubricated now, and we're running like a machine again. But thank you for bearing with us. Let us know what you think about this movie. What do you think about Barbie? And if it's of a certain opinion, I don't want to fucking hear it. You know who you are, okay? But, feel free to let us know what you think about our review of Barbie. Did we miss anything in the Ryan Gosling season that maybe you wanted to hear about? And is it Drive? Who knows? But, guys, this is again, one of the weird moments that we have that happens at the end of any season. We don't have another movie for next week. What do we have, guys? What's going to happen next week instead of a movie?
That is a great question.
Nobody knows.
I think okay, Jay, we do know what's going to happen.
Guys, 100 movies.
Wheel of Chaos.
It's the state of the podcast
if we
episode.
wait for another round number, we have to hit 1,000.
It's State of the Podcast. Next week, guys, we will discuss and diffuse this whole, what's that called? Debrief the Ryan Gosling season. Gosling's Garden. How did it go? And if you guys missed any movies this season, if you guys didn't feel like watching every single one, this is a good catch-up episode to see like what we thought of each one really quickly, and our analysis of how it went. Did we enjoy it? Did it go bland? Really? And then we'll see what's going to happen for season 11. For the love of God.
See what's going to happen.
Thank you guys so much for bearing with us this episode. Do you guys want to leave our audience with a final Goslingism? All right, maybe something that Ken would. Okay,
Can we do 2 words at a time?
Yeah, okay, let's do it. Fuck it. All right, Jace, you start us off, I guess.
When I
was a.
Don't say young warthog. Just let me just. Pickle jar.
I kept
My pickles.
In a
jar for
Salty broth.
And my
sticker was
expired by
next week.
It's really off-putting to get to a position where you have to like say a word and then pivot. And you're like,
And next time we'll do 3 words.